And we start right away with the most terrifying, a brutal, the largest missile drone attack on the capital of Ukraine since the beginning of the war. 12 people were killed. In Kyiv, the Sviatoshinsky district, located in the northwest of the city, suffered the most from the strike. It was there that a multi-apartment residential building was destroyed by a missile hit, and neighboring buildings were damaged. All the details are further in the pain-filled report from our colleagues at the television news service.
It's 11 in the morning. Rescuers are still clearing the debris in 3 districts of Kyiv: Obolonsky, Sviatoshinsky, and Shevchenkivsky. We are currently in the Sviatoshinsky district, where the consequences of the Russian night attack are almost the most severe. Behind me is a completely destroyed 2-story house, which was likely targeted by missiles. And next to it is also a destroyed 5-story building. Residents are currently not allowed into the area as the search for people continues. A lot of houses around have also been damaged, about 2 dozen.
At the moment, we can clearly state that there are 8 fatalities. The 9th person, whom we consider deceased, consists of body remains that are currently also undergoing forensic examination. And we have more than 70 people injured, 44 of whom are in medical facilities.
Currently, about 100 rescuers are working here. They are searching for missile debris, and investigative actions are being conducted. Here, dog handlers are working with dogs. Psychologists are working, and of course, right next to the tape, many people are waiting for their relatives, waiting for their missing loved ones. We also met a group of people who are waiting for their loved ones. They are teenagers. Their friend is somewhere there on the 1st floor. At least he was there at night. And so far, he hasn't made contact.
I don't know what's happening with him.
Is he your friend?
Yes, I hope he's alive.
Now, the rescuers have asked everyone to remain silent for a few minutes. They are listening for sounds under the slabs. Possibly some signs, maybe someone is knocking, to hear anything and find people who are still waiting under the rubble. Thanks to these moments of silence, the rescuers managed to hear a voice under the rubble. Within half an hour, they managed to pull a young man out from under the debris. It's not the friend of the group of friends who are waiting. It's a neighbor. He lived on the 1st floor. The 29-year-old man was trapped under the rubble and remained there for 6 hours. He was successfully extricated and has now been hospitalized with multiple injuries.
He responded to the rescuers' voices, and that's how we determined his location under the rubble, and gradually we managed to get him out. Unfortunately, there is a high probability that there may still be bodies of the deceased under the debris. There might also be survivors. We are still searching.
According to preliminary information from the minister, missiles, presumably Iskanders, hit this area. At the moment, law enforcement has already opened a criminal case, but the search and rescue operation continues. There is still hope that there are survivors under the rubble waiting to be rescued.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Yes, Russian war criminals are only capable of terrorizing, killing, and ruining the lives of peaceful Ukrainians. Meanwhile, on the front, there is another route of Russian infantry in the Kupiansk direction. Soon, we will show you these footage. Also, a video has appeared online showing coffins of Russian soldiers who fought in the Kherson direction. It is there that the enemy also suffers colossal losses. Meanwhile, Ukrainian armed forces drones have reached Tatarstan. The attack was so effective that even restrictions were imposed on the operations of the airports in Nizhnekamsk and Kazan. This is while the 51st Grau arsenal in the Vladimir region is still burning. There, up to 270,000 tons of enemy ammunition were destroyed, just to give you an idea. All the details in our next report.
The Russian occupiers cannot hide, and the Ukrainian defense forces are destroying the enemy. Ukrainian armed forces sappers struck with a vampire UAV at a ground shelter where the enemy was hiding. And this is already in the Kharkiv direction, where Ukrainian fighters used a UAV to destroy a platoon of occupiers and enemy equipment. And this means that the families of Russian occupiers who went to war against Ukraine continue to receive coffins. This time, the unpleasant package came from the Kherson region. To justify the losses and supposedly show their strength, the occupiers have intensified shelling of populated areas. First, they drop aerial bombs, and then they cover the same area with artillery.
The Russians are attacking exclusively civilian infrastructure in the controlled territories of the Kherson region. Primarily, this involves striking energy infrastructure facilities. In other words, they are trying to create chaos, panic, and distrust towards the actions of central and local authorities. It should be noted that the Russian side's ability to conduct large-scale landing operations in this area has been reduced to almost zero.
And the Russian occupation army does not cease its attempts to capture Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region. However, despite all the efforts that the Russians have made over the past months, their attempts are in vain. The invaders have not been able to approach the city.
Currently, the Ukrainian defense forces have pushed the occupiers back by 2 to 2.5 kilometers from Pokrovsk, from their previously held positions. Moreover, there is a prospect of restoring the location of the Ukrainian defense forces in the Mezhova area. In addition, on the second flank, in the area of the settlement of Shevchenko, the Ukrainian defense forces are preventing the enemy from expanding for their zone of presence.
And while the Russians are making new plans, the Ukrainian armed forces are taking action. The Ukrainian army is already deploying the latest robots on the front, writes the Telegraph. One of the representatives of combat technology is the robot Zmai. In 2025, Ukraine plans to deploy up to 15,000 similar platforms.
This is a ground robot, and it is designed for demining areas. It should be noted that according to Ukrainian specialists, the technical characteristics of this robot allow it to clear up to 2 hectares of mine territory. It moves close to the ground, neutralizes mines, and is remotely operated by an operator from a protected shelter. This minimizes the possibility of direct impact on the operator of this ground robot.
Ukraine is focused on creating robots on a large scale that will assist the armed forces on the front line. An example of this is a separate unit of the Unmanned Systems Force.
The Ukrainian side is scaling up the direct use of combat drones in real combat conditions. In addition, the Ukrainian side is taking an innovative approach to the development of unmanned aerial vehicles. This refers to FPV drones, which are intended for the direct neutralization of Russian reconnaissance drones, and, accordingly, Geran-2 strike drones.
But in Russia, it was also very loud and bright again.
Oh, hurry! Wow, that was amazing!
One of the largest ammunition depots is on fire, the 51st Grau Arsenal.
According to some reports, this warehouse can store about 270,000 tons of ammunition, artillery shells, rockets for MLRS, SAM components, and tactical missiles like Tochka-U.
The distance from the line of combat contact to the 61st Grau arsenal itself is about 530 to 550 kilometers. Notably, the distance from the arsenal itself to the capital of the occupying country is about 60 kilometers. It should be noted that this area is the most saturated with air defense and missile defense systems.
This is already the 4th Grau arsenal destroyed since the 24th year. In total, there are 11 such facilities in Russia.
These are colossal losses for the Russian side. It should be noted that, according to estimates by the Ukrainian intelligence community, after the destruction of 3 Grau depots in 2024, the intensity of fire damage by the Russian Federation decreased significantly. If previously there were up to 40,000 shells per day, then after the destruction of the Grau depots, this figure decreased to approximately 16 to 17,000.
It would be better for the Russians to strengthen their leaky air defense, as the number of depots is becoming fewer and fewer. And who knows, maybe the 5th one is already in the crosshairs. Now let's analyze the operational situation on the Novopavlovsk front. The bloody frenzy of the enemy's army continues here as well. On the Novopavlovsk front, the enemy launched 15 attacks yesterday in the areas of the settlements of Konstantinopol, Razliv, Skudnoy, Revnopol, and Novodarovka.